Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one.
The introduction. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the quiet avenues of Crescent Grove. In this suburban enclave, the calm of daily life, often masked, the darkness lurking beneath the surface. Nestled between the well-manicured lawns and picket fences, the townsfolk moved through their routines, blissfully unaware of the impending storm. It was a typical Friday evening in the fall of 2017, when the tranquility shattered. A piercing scream echoed through the crisp air, mingling with the rustle of maple leaves. The sound originated from the Johnsons' home, a cheerful two-story property where the laughter of children usually filled the hall. Neighbors peered cautiously from their windows, their hearts racing as curiosity gripped them tighter than fear. When the paramedics arrived, the scene was more chaotic than anyone had anticipated. They rushed past the front door, past the sight of a terrified child crying for her mother, past the haunting stillness of the living room where a life had come to an abrupt end. Mrs. Johnson, a beloved schoolteacher known for her kindness, lay lifeless on the floor, her once warm smile now replaced by a pallid expression of confusion and fear. Detective Mark Daniels arrived shortly thereafter, drawn in by the sirens and frantic whispering in the air. He had spent 15 years on the force, and though every case took a toll, something about this one felt different. The Johnsons had always been the kind of family that everyone admired, making their tragedy feel all the more personal. As he stepped inside, the scent of blood punctuated the air, the shocking juxtaposition of familiarity and horror merging into a singular focus. Finding the truth behind the shattered facade of this quiet community. The victim. As the night unfolded, Detective Daniels grappled with the stark reality of the crime scene. Mrs. Johnson, known affectionately to the neighborhood as Miss Lily, had woven herself into the fabric of Crescent Grove over the years. Her vibrant personality was a beacon in the lives of her students and neighbors alike, her laughter echoing in the hallways of the local elementary school, where she taught for over a decade. Lily Johnson was a mother to two spirited children. Sarah, a 12-year-old with an insatiable curiosity, and 8-year-old Ethan, who idolized his mother. Friends described her as nurturing to the core, often inviting families over for warm dinners, or spending weekends volunteering. Yet behind the warm smiles, Daniels wondered whether anyone had glimpsed the darker currents that might swirl beneath her sunshine. In the living room, the makeshift memorial of candles and flowers was a testament to a life lived in full view, cut short in a blink. The wallpaper around them told tales of family vacations, birthday parties, and holidays, ordinary suburban moments that now seemed painfully fragile. A framed photograph rested beside the scattered remnants of police evidence. It captured a vibrant smile enveloped in arms. Beside her stood a man with an equally bright smile, Jake Johnson, Lily's husband. Lily's husband. Daniels felt an unease creep in as he learned more about Jake, the good man by all accounts, but one who bore the weight of a demanding job in sales that often required late nights and trouble. Friends hinted at a strain in their relationship, but offered no substantial evidence of conflict. Was it a simple case of life pressures fraying at the edges? Or was there something deeper below the surface waiting to be uncovered? As the detective stood in the flickering glow of candlelight, he made a silent vow to uncover every layer of this tragedy, to ensure that Lily Johnson's death would not become another grim statistic, lost in the shadows of an idyllic neighbor. The truth awaited, and he was determined to find it. The crime scene. The living room presented a chilling tableau, a stark reminder that even the most peaceful homes could harbor unimaginable horrors. Detective Daniels moved carefully through the space, his mind processing each detail with meticulous attention. The soft blue couch remained untouched, positioned perfectly opposite a cheerful family portrait hanging on the wall. Yet now, it was marred by the reality of blood splattered across the adjacent carpet, a harrowing reminder of the violence that had invaded this sanctuary. With his flashlight cutting through the dim room, Daniels examined the crime scene in layers. There were no signs of forced entry, the front door stood locked, and the windows appeared secure. This pointed to an intruder who had been let in, perhaps known to the victim. His heart sank as he noted the splintering wood in the corner of the coffee table. The only signs of a struggle. Would Lily have had time to defend herself? The thought echoed in his mind like a haunting refrain. The forensic team moved methodically, documenting every shred of evidence. A bloodied knife lay discarded on the floor, its blade glistening ominously in the light. It appeared to belong to the Johnson family kitchen. A common tool turned sinister. Daniels' gut twisted with the realization that this weapon had taken a life. It had belonged to someone who had entrusted it to prepare daily meals, to nurture, to create comfort. As the last of the forensic technicians finished their tasks, a stronger question weighed on the detective's mind. Was this a crime of passion? Or had someone cloaked in familiarity turned violent, lurking behind the veneer of PTA meetings and soccer practices? Who was capable of such an act? With a last sweep of the room, he stepped outside into the cool night air, trying to shake off the oppressive atmosphere. He made a mental note to speak with neighbors, to dig deeper into the Johnsons' lives. For every seemingly ordinary moment in Crescent Grove, there was likely a hidden truth waiting to be uncovered. The quiet hum of the neighborhood had been shattered, and as he walked towards his car, Daniels could feel the unsettling weight of what lay ahead. The investigation had just begun. The early investigation. The following morning unfolded under a gray sky draped in a somber mist. Detective Daniels convened with his team at the precinct, their heads collectively clouded with questions swirling from the previous night's tragedy. Tacked on a corkboard, photographs of the Johnsons stood framed, capturing moments filled with joy that now felt hauntingly out of place. Daniels paced the room, focusing on the facts that had emerged overnight. Among the first leads was a neighbor named Mary, who had claimed she heard raised voices shortly before the scream tore through the stillness. Mary lived 2 houses down and was often present at the neighborhood gatherings, her familiarity offering comfort even amidst now glaring suspicion. It would be wise to speak with her and gauge the extent of her observations. "Let's interview everyone who was around that night," he instructed his team, his tone resolute. "We need to paint a complete picture of Lily's life and identify potential motive. She must have had acquaintances, friends, or someone else in her life we haven't considered." His first stop was Mary's house. She opened the door, her eyes puffy and red, remnants of tears etched into her features. "I can't believe this happened. It's just too awful," she murmured, stepping aside to allow Daniels into her home. As they settled at her kitchen table, he studied her closely, noting the tremors in her hands. "Mary, I understand this is difficult. You said you heard something the night of the incident. Can you tell me what you remember?" Taking a deep breath, Mary recounted her observations in fragments, trembling at her own recollections. She had heard shouting, a woman's voice raised in distress. And then silence, pierced only by the sound of a child wailing. Her memory remained vivid, yet she struggled to recount more. Concern Daniels was her mention of another car parked outside the Johnsons' home before the incident, a black sedan. One he hadn't seen before. As he left, collecting more information seemed imperative. Maria's testimony sparked a flicker of insight amid the thick fog of uncertainty. The town's sense of security had been breached, and as the minutes turned into hours, the urgency to unveil hidden connections and the elusive truth intensified. The investigation was no longer just about a murder. It had become a battle against the stillness that threatened to smother Crescent Grove. The dead ends. The days slipped by like sand through an hourglass, and with each passing hour, the initial excitement of discovery waned, leaving only disquiet and frustration in its wake. Detective Daniels found himself reviewing leads that seemed promising at first, but wilted under scrutiny as quickly as they emerged. The black sedan noted by Mary had become a phantom, with no registrations matching the description traced back to the area. His inquiries into the neighbors revealed not much more than hollow whispers of disbelief. Some, like Mary, had witnessed odd behavior around the Johnson household, but none could provide a clearer picture. Others claimed Lily and Jake's relationship was flawless, blissfully ignorant of the toll that harbored secrets could have on a marriage. Daniel sat at his desk, shuffling through pages filled with interviews and notes. The presence of the knife remained a haunting focal point. Forensic tests came back with limited results, no fingerprints that could lead to a suspect, no DNA that could connect the weapon definitively to another individual. It was as if the crime itself had taken place in a vacuum, isolated and impenetrable. Another dead end appeared as the detective delved deeper into Lily's past. His team had reached out to former colleagues and friends, each claiming she had been a model employee and a devoted mother, creating a facade that nothing could shatter. And yet, the more he dug, the more he began to feel that this perfect image might be an elaborate ruse. It was during a quiet moment while staring outside at the gray sky, heavy with impending rain, that an idea flickered in his mind. Perhaps the lack of clarity was not merely a result of Lily's life being so unblemished, but rather a carefully constructed narrative hiding the messiness of her reality. What if people were protecting someone? Resuming the calls to family, friends, and colleagues, he pushed for deeper conversations, searching for cracks in the stories they told, hoping to peel back layers to reveal the secrets beneath. With the investigation still at a standstill, Daniels felt the weight of uncertainty tightening around him. The solitude of the case pressed in like the morning fog, and time threatened to slip away. The hunt for justice was still alive, but it demanded more than luck to uncover the truth hidden beneath the surface. At a break in the case, the relentless deluge of rain blurred the edges of Crescent Grove, darkening the once vibrant neighborhood into a monochromatic scene of despair. But amidst the gloom, hope flickered as Detective Daniels received a call that promised to reignite the investigation. It was Ryan, a forensic technician, with news of a promising lead that could change the entire trajectory of the case. "Detective, we've run several tests on that blood found on the knife, and while there were no prints, we did manage to isolate a DNA sample. It isn't a perfect match to Mrs. Johnson or her family," Ryan explained, his voice betraying excitement despite the irritation of rain drumming against the windows. "Who does it belong to?" Daniels pressed, barely able to contain his anticipation. It belongs to a man named Keith Calderon. He is a former student of Lily's and has had some run-ins with the law, Ryan replied, the details rolling off his tongue as though they held the secrets of the universe. The name sent a jolt through Daniel. He recalled a vague mention during his interviews of a troubled student who had once harbored an obsessive admiration for Miss Johnson. With a gut feeling that this could be the key to unlocking the case, he instructed Ryan to forward the details immediately. Later that afternoon, Daniels and his team plunged into Calderon's history. Bureau records revealed a pattern of erratic behavior stemming from issues in his home life. A series of restraining orders, previous run-ins with domestic violence charges, and a history of stalking behavior toward female teachers had culminated in a red flag that couldn't be ignored. However, Calderon had also disappeared shortly after Lily's murder, another worrisome detail. Fueled by urgency, Daniels worked through the evening, piecing together information. He reached out to a local police precinct that had jurisdiction over Calderon's last known address, pleading for a welfare check. As he waited for confirmation, the weight of possibility began to lift, replacing despair with a charged sense of purpose. Could this possible lead finally unravel the tightly knit fabric of Crescent Grove secrets? Daniels had caught a glimpse of light through the dense fog, and this time, he was not going to let it slip away. The suspect. The following morning broke crisp and clear. Contrasting sharply was the murky cloud of uncertainty that had shrouded the investigation. Detective Daniels paced his office, glancing through the stack of papers bearing the name Keith Calderon. He felt the adrenaline thrumming beneath his skin, each beat urging him to act swiftly before the potential suspect slipped through their grasp. A call came in from the neighboring precinct just after sunrise. They had located Calderon at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The officers reported he appeared agitated and unkempt, frequently glancing over his shoulder as though expecting to be hunted. Daniels felt the sharp edge of urgency propel him into action, assembling a team to apprehend the man who might hold the answers they sought. Arriving at the warehouse, Daniels observed law enforcement agents fanned out across the area, while a tactical team watched from a distance. Underneath the peeling paint and crumbling bricks lay dark histories and perhaps secrets surrounding Mrs. Johnson's death. As they approached the entrance, Daniels momentarily hesitated at the door, mentally preparing himself for the encounter. With a nod, they pushed through, the echoes of footsteps reverberating through the hollow interior. The air was thick with the stale scent of urine and decay, a stark reminder that this place might harbor more than just Calderon. They found him cowering in a corner, looking surprisingly frail among the shadows. His eyes darted like a cornered animal, and the moment their gazes locked, something primal set in. "What do you want?" he spat, his voice trembling as he repositioned himself against the wall. "Keith Calderon," Daniels began, his tone steady. "We have some questions about Lily Johnson's murder." Calderon's reaction was immediate. Flicker of fear mingled with something else. A flicker of guilt that danced across his features. He opened his mouth to speak but found no words. Daniel stepped closer, noticing the way his hands clenched and released, a nervous tell. "We know you have a history with her," Daniels pressed, seeking to reset the balance. "You were released from school only a year ago, yet you're connected to this case through a DNA sample." The tank of Calderon's bravado began losing pressure, and a bead of sweat traced down his temple. "I didn't kill her," he stammered, a fragile crack in his voice revealing the raw energy of desperation. "I loved her. She was the only one who cared about me." The walls closed in around Daniels, the weight of the confession hanging heavy in the air. It was time to dive deeper into the psyche of a man spiraling out of control, possibly driven to commit an unspeakable act in a desperate grasp for acceptance. The search for answers loomed there, was a narrative hidden in a mind willing to unravel at his fingertips. The trial. The courtroom buzzed with tension as the golden sun filtered through tall windows, illuminating the somber faces of the onlookers gathered to witness the proceedings. It had been nearly 6 months since Lily Johnson's untimely death, a tragedy that had shaken Crescent Grove and drawn a web of emotions at the heart of the community. Now, the small town found itself at the epicenter of a legal battle that weighed heavily on its collective conscience. Detective Daniel sat in the front row, a silent observer fully aware of the stakes involved. As the gavel rapped against the polished wood, the judge called the court to order, and the murmur quieted to a tense whisper. Keith Calderon, the former student turned suspect, sat at the defendant's table, an ashen complexion draping his features, making him look even more fragile than before. Prosecutor Elaine Richards rose to present the state's case. With unwavering resolve, she laid it out, the timeline of events, each detail more damning than the last. The evidence, she explained, pointed to a calculation of obsession and desperation. She recounted the pattern of Calderon's fixation on Miss Johnson, his repeated attempts to connect with her, ignored and eventually discouraged. The emotional narrative hung heavily in the air, wrapping the courtroom in a shroud of sorrow. As day turned to night, each witness painted a picture of a tortured soul, navigating the furious terrain of unrequited love. From his strained relationships with classmates to his obsession with lessons held in the very classroom where Lily taught, it soon became clear to the jury how twisted Calderon's admiration had morphed. When it was finally Daniel's turn to testify, he felt the weight of the truth settle within him. As he walked to the stand, he recalled the details of the investigation with precision, the evidence collected, the orchestrated timeline of Lily's last moments, and the shattered lives left in the wake of her death. It was a portrayal of grief that united the community, the struggle for justice resonating beyond the confines of the walls before him. As weeks turned into months, the trial revealed not just the circumstances surrounding Lily's death, but also the profound impact it had on Crescent Grove. Jurors were expressions of sympathy, fear, and anger as they grappled with the emotions that erupted during these proceedings. The story of love turned lethal echoed from within and bound the town together in shared mourning. Finally, the jury filed in to deliver their verdict. The tension in the room was palpable as they faced the judge. Detective Daniels watched, his heart pounding as they announced their decision, one that would reverberate through the community for years to come. Justice, after all this time, was finally about to be served. The aftermath. The gavel fell, sealing Calderon's fate and drawing a shudder of relief from those in attendance. As the verdict echoed through the courtroom, A muted sigh escaped the lips of many, a collective exhale of unburdened sorrow. The jury's decision had pronounced him guilty of second-degree murder, the conclusion that sent ripples of mixed emotions through Crescent Grove. Justice had been served, yet the specter of loss lingered, refusing to dissipate, even with a verdict that carried a sense of closure. In the weeks that followed, the community sought to regain its footing, trying to reclaim a semblance of normalcy amidst the chaos that had unfolded. The once vibrant Johnson home was wrapped in silence, desolation hanging in the air where laughter had once thrived. Neighbors often gathered at makeshift vigils, honoring Lily's memory with candles and laughter as they reminisced about the warmth she had shared, the love she had offered so freely. Detective Daniels found himself often reflecting on the case, the heaviness of loss, entwined with the satisfaction of resolution. He spent countless nights at his desk, staring into carefully curated notes and photographs, haunted by the images of the fractured family and children. He would grow up without their mother. In a quiet moment, he reached out to Jake Johnson, extending the olive branch of support. Jake responded, a weary yet grateful man, responding not just with words of thanks, but details of how his life had pivoted since the trial began. "I'm trying to move forward for Sarah and Ethan," he confessed, his voice breaking. "But there's a part of me that feels lost without her." Their discussions turned into meetings, and slowly through the act of sharing their grief, two discovered a shared healing journey. With time, they forged an unlikely bond, united by the scars of their loss, a healing that illuminated the power of resilience amidst tragedy. As the first leaves of autumn began to tumble from the trees, Daniels recognized a slow rebirth of the neighborhood. The community rallied to organize a charity in Lily's name, funneling their grief into efforts to support educators and students facing personal hardships. It became a testament to her legacy, transforming despair into hope and gathering momentum that transcended the boundaries of their shared tragedy. Though the scar of violence would remain forever etched into the fabric of Crescent Grove, the spirit of unity and love began to flourish like the blooms in the spring. In the end, it was a reminder that even in the face of darkness, when lives are irrevocably changed, the path toward healing could lead to a future intertwined with kindness, compassion, and shared purpose. Detective Daniels resolved to be a steadfast guardian of those memories and the living legacy of Lily Johnson, committed to honoring her life through collective empathy and support. The quest for justice had morphed into an enduring call for communal resilience. Reflection. Months melted into a year since that fateful autumn day. Daniels often found himself revisiting the case that had changed not only his career, but the very essence of Crescent Grove. The chilly air and rustling leaves whipped around him as he took a solitary walk through the neighborhood, where life had cautiously resumed its rhythm. Yet, even in this moment of serenity, he carried the weight of unanswered questions that hung persistently over him. As he passed the Johnson home, now transformed into a memorial garden adorned with colorful blooms, a wave of bittersweet nostalgia crashed over him. He reflected on the emotions that had unfolded over the months, a spiral of sorrow mixed with newfound friendships, the shared grief that had knitted the community closer together. For every darkness, a flicker of light emerged, illuminating the realm of human connection born out of tragedy. Daniels recognized that healing takes time, woven together with the stories and memories of those lost. It had become clear that life, with all its fragility, was an intricate tapestry of experiences that could veer into chaos at any moment. For every smile exchanged, for every act of kindness shared among neighbors, he understood that they were acts against darkness. Humanity's defiance against the cruelty. It sometimes shattered the ordinary.